Beneath the Magnolia Tree, a story of quiet grief, unspoken love, and the lingering echoes of a marriage that bloomed too late to be saved. The Magnolia Tree hasn't bloomed in 3 years. It rises in the center of the yard like a forgotten monument, slender limbs reaching skyward as if in longing. Each morning, coffee cradled in my hands, I sit beneath it. I stare until my eyes ache, waiting for something to change. But change, like forgiveness, does not come easily. She planted it in our 3rd year of marriage, digging into the earth with bare hands. Said it reminded her of where she came from. I never asked where that was. I nodded, murmuring something about how nice it would look in spring. We existed like 2 parallel lines, close, never touching. We shared dinners, not dreams. Sleep, but never the quiet inside each other's heads. There was always a pause between us, a softness we mistook for comfort. Now I see it for what it was. She died last spring, not with fanfare or suddenness, but with a slow fade that neither of us saw coming. The kind of leaving that doesn't knock, doesn't whisper, just slips out the door without saying goodbye. The silence she left behind was not an empty one. It hummed, thick with the echo of words unsaid. The house remains a monument to inertia. Her coat is by the door, slippers under the bed. Dishes she favored were still stacked neatly in the corner cupboard, not preserved, just untouched. Moving them would be admitting something final. But in truth, I do not know what else to do. The routines remain, hollowed now. The hallway creaks where she used to walk. The light hits the bathroom mirror at the same angle each morning, but no steam fogs its glass anymore. Mourners came and went in polite cycles. Hands were shaken, eyes were averted. The casseroles congealed in the fridge. After the last goodbye, I was alone with the walls, the muted hum of the refrigerator, and the ticking of clocks that didn't mourn her absence. Then I found her journals. They weren't hidden, just placed deliberately, tied with a blue ribbon, slightly frayed. As if she meant for me to find them, but only when the silence had grown deep enough. The pages were neat and careful, each one an artifact of a private world I never knew existed. Some had pressed petals folded inside, reminders of moments she cherished. Moments that didn't include me. She wrote about small joys, the soft crisp of toast, the lullaby rhythm of rain, a kind of mindfulness I never understood. Then subtly the tone shifted. Memories bled between the lines, not declared but hinted, artful and honest in their quiet betrayal. She never wrote his name, but I didn't need it. Cafe corners, gentle touches, laughter that breathed without effort. A different life carved out within ours, running like a silent current. It didn't start recently. It had history, roots. While I was mapping budgets in foreign cities, she was somewhere else entirely in presence, if not in body. I felt no rage, only a soft unraveling, like cloth giving way under the strain of years. The betrayal was less about the affair and more about how invisible I had become, or perhaps had always been. I never brought it up, not once, not when she was alive and the signs still whispered around us. I was too invested in the illusion of calm. I mistook endurance for happiness, believed that stillness was enough, but peace can be a silence we grow deaf to. And then came the boy. It started on a quiet Thursday. I was walking past the bakery she loved, the one with the nutty bread she never paid exact change for. He stood just outside, small and uncertain. He couldn't have been more than 9. But something in his posture, shoulders set back, jaw slightly tense, felt familiar. Too familiar. He was with a woman I didn't recognize, not someone from our circles. Her hair was loose, her laughter free. She held his hand with a kind of casual trust, as if she knew he'd return even if he let go. They disappeared down the block, unaware of me. But I couldn't look away. The next day I saw him again, alone, kicking a stone down the path. Each time after that, the sightings multiplied by the bookstore near the park bench she used to sit at on mild afternoons. He moved like he belonged, but his presence scratched at something buried. Curiosity gave way to certainty. I followed it once, just once, enough to see his route. Over the river bridge, through alley shortcuts behind the school, ending in front of the library. He read there, lost in the pages. Quiet, focused, like her. The eyes confirmed it, wide, intelligent, slightly sad. The timeline fell into place. That year, she smiled more easily. I thought it was the yoga classes. I never asked where she really went. I never wanted to know. There was no anger, just a tightening in my chest that refused to release. He was not mine, but I couldn't detach. I became something like a shadow, watching from doorways and car windows, a quiet witness to the life he carried forward. I imagined what I'd say if I ever approached, practiced phrases in my head, rehearsed the apology that wasn't mine to give, but I never stepped forward. At home, her scent still lingered in odd places, drawers, scarves, old books, fleeting, like a ghost trying to remember who she used to be. I didn't cry. Grief doesn't always need tears. Sometimes it just sits with you, uninvited, sipping from your cup and staying past midnight. I considered leaving, starting over, but the thought of building something new felt like betrayal. Not of her, of the stillness we built together. I wasn't looking to escape, only to survive, and survival often looks like staying put. Then winter arrived. The snow came slowly, melting on contact. One afternoon I watched him emerge from school, trailing behind the others. He limped slightly, just a bruise maybe, and looked skyward. Eyes closed, he stood in the flurry's hush. That one motion broke something loose inside me. I left before he opened his eyes. The magnolia stayed barren. Seasons came and went, indifferent. Then one morning, without warning, a bud. Not large, not loud, but real. I sat beside it, coffee untouched. Light shifted across its fragile petals like a blessing. I didn't take a photo. I didn't call anyone. I just existed beside it, grateful for the life that had returned without asking permission. The days grew warmer. The magnolia tree wore its blossoms like soft confessions, each one a silent offering. I found myself beneath it more often, not out of ritual, but because something about its renewal made me feel less brittle. The petals, delicate as breath, carried with them the hush of forgiveness not asked for, not granted, just understood. In the quiet of those mornings, I began to walk again. Not with purpose, but with a need to move through spaces where she had once lingered. The market where she'd lingered too long by the fig stand. The corner where the bookstore cat used to rub against her ankles. These places felt changed and unchanged, familiar yet indifferent. Life had gone on without us, and there was a strange comfort in that. I returned to the bench outside the library more than once. Each time, the boy was gone. A different child sat there once, reading something thick and serious, but it wasn't him. I felt the loss of it more sharply than expected, like reaching for a light switch in the dark and finding the walls smooth. The ache wasn't just for what I missed, but for what I'd never had. The chance to be something to him, anything, had passed quietly, as all chances do when left unclaimed. At home, the journals stayed in their drawer, untouched. I no longer needed to turn the pages to feel her presence. Her absence had become a presence of its own, filling the space beside me at the table, the silence in the car rides, and the shadow in the hallway at dusk. She lived in the folds of ordinary days, not haunting them, but gently occupying the corners. One morning, I found an envelope tucked behind a recipe book. I hadn't noticed it before. It was addressed to no one. Inside was a sketch of charcoal lines forming the shape of the magnolia tree. Beneath it, her handwriting looped a single word: stay. I stood with the paper in my hand until the air around me stilled. She had never been the type to explain things, but perhaps this was enough explanation. Spring deepened. I trimmed the garden, repotted her succulents, and cleaned out the guest room. It wasn't about letting go. It was about letting things be. Grief, like the weather, didn't need fixing, only witnessing. I saw the woman once more, the one who held the boy's hand like it was second nature. She was leaving the florist, a single sunflower tucked in her bag. She walked quickly, eyes on the pavement, but there was a lightness to her that caught the wind. I didn't follow. I didn't want to know more. Some things, once understood, ask for distance, not out of avoidance, but reverence. In the evenings, I read by the window, the magnolia in view. Its blossoms, now in full bloom, glowed against the fading sky. Neighbors passed by, some waving, some just nodding. I had become a fixture, like the tree, like the house, weathered but steady. And there was peace in that. One rainy afternoon, a letter arrived with no return address. Inside was a child drawing rough lines in uneven color. A tree, a house, and a man beneath it with a cup in his hand. The boy had drawn it. I knew it instantly. There was no signature, no note, just the image. A quiet offering. I didn't frame it, I didn't hide it. I pinned it to the inside of the cabinet where the coffee mugs lived. Each morning it greeted me like a whispered hello. Summer came, and with it a rhythm. I began to sleep better, eat more, dream less. Not because I had forgotten her or the boy or the years that passed like mist, but because the weight they once carried had shifted. It was no longer on my shoulders. It had settled into the foundation beneath me. The journals remained untouched. The coat stayed by the door, but now these relics didn't mourn as they remembered. There was a difference. I learned to live with memory as a companion, not a burden. Some mornings I even caught myself humming, the sound foreign and familiar at once. The magnolia tree shed its last bloom in early August. I watched it drift down like the closing of a chapter, soft and inevitable. I didn't try to catch it, I let it fall. In time, the boy would grow. Perhaps he'd forget the man who watched him from across the street, or maybe he'd remember in fragments a figure beneath a tree, always quiet, always still. He would never know the shape of what tied us. And maybe that was better. Not all truths demand to be spoken. Some live more peacefully in silence. The seasons will return as they always do. The tree will bloom again, or it won't. I will sit beneath it either way, coffee warm in my hands, the air filled with the scent of what once was and what still remains.